It's preparing.
Uh, has it loaded or nah?
Just did.
Hey, okay. Welcome to Wasm-cloud Wednesday for July 29th. This is the Wednesday after release day, which was yesterday. And yesterday we released a big release for 2.6. Last week I went through a lot of the changes that were happening. Well, we landed most of them, which was very exciting, but we also had a ton more changes come in. The first thing I want to talk about is please try it out. We've released 2.6. We really want your feedback. My intention is to slow down the rate of change here and get it to where everybody has an opportunity to consume and provide feedback. And I want to actually show you our Wasm-cloud board, where we ended up at the end of this release. We're looking pretty, actually. So over here on desktop 2, boom. Okay. So we've landed some major features. And first one, host components. What that one is that you can create your own component, your own WebAssembly component, and provide new interfaces that other workloads can depend on in your host. It builds on some of the other features that we already have with implements, which is also in this release. We also have essentially a ton of different things that have landed in terms of performance and isolation that have landed in this release, although there's another change that is close to landing here that netted us a really nice performance improvement. And this is essentially with P3, you can do some pretty nice things like being able to spawn concurrent subtasks on components. So first, we had to implement a pool. So now we basically have an instance pool when we get in a request. And so we keep that pool around because we're keeping the store alive. That's where a lot of our instantiation calls comes from. When we make a request in, if you include this change, now not only do we have like this pool, but we're also threading those requests into the instance that's sitting in that pool. So what went before as like bunch of different instances, now you can actually do multiple things concurrently in that instance. And the reason why that makes a lot of sense for workloads that run on Wasm-cloud is that these are basically IO bound, aka usually network bound. So for the most part, a lot of these instances are sitting idle, waiting for their await to come back from the network request. So instead of just sitting there and waiting, that component instance can actually service other requests concurrently, which is pretty nice. So this one adds that. We had already defined this API before, all the way up as part of the 2.0 release, because we knew we wanted to do this. We just now got to it though. So that one's going to be a pretty big boost. And we also created basically the ability for people to define their own trigger services. So the way to ingress into your workload, you can now tightly and fine-grained control how that works, both ingress and egress really out of your service. So I think so much has changed here. We don't have a blog post on it yet. That's something I might start on soon. But I guess the biggest thing is like, I really want feedback on these new entity types, different types of architectures that you can build on this. And yeah, I think apart from that, these were the big rocks for our quarter. One more big rock that we haven't taken on yet is the distributed cache. Now that we've got a lot of those out of the way, I think that's probably the next big one to work on. A lot of the other things are actually not big, right? They're going to be a lot of small incremental changes, a lot of new host component plugins I expect, a lot of like enhancement kind of stuff that's small. I don't expect us to have any more other than distributed cache, another major epic like we had, except this one, which is probably going to be a long-running epic, honestly. You know, we're always going to be trying to target and expand our language support. But if there's any place where other folks wanted to come in and get involved and make things better, this is probably a great one to take a look at. So that is essentially where we are right now.
Awesome stuff, Bailey.
Yeah, it was a lot of changes. I went through them one by one last week. I don't think I'm going to do that again, mainly because it might overwhelm some people. You know, this is what it looked like. I think right now the next step is to sort of make sure that we've got great documentation around this. We've already made a pass on wasmcloud.com. So if you go here and you pull it up, we do have the introduction to what trigger services are, what host components are, but there's just more to do. But this is the first page for that if you're interested in reading about it. And we also have some on-host component plugins, but that's probably this is probably where there's a lot more to add. Like the things you need to think about when you're doing this is probably the most important thing to capture here. But in terms of adding it, you know, and taking it all the way through for Kubernetes, it's all here already. So now the most important thing is your feedback on all these things. And right now we don't have architecture diagrams for all of those, so that's kind of where I think I'm going to spend some of my time is describing how concurrency works, how pooling works, how host component plugins work, and like describing the different axes of performance that you need to think about across all of these. I guess anybody have any questions or discussion topics they want on that one? Yeah, hey Frank.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to add to this. I mean, I see a lot of, let's say, happy paths here, but whenever we put something, document and something else, so that we all have failure modes or how to recover and that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's a lot behind that in terms of tests. Oh yeah, this one just merged, but this one's a good one to look at. So talking about these trigger services and their failure modes, there's quite a bit here on how they restart. So if you go to the integration test here for integration service HTTP, which is probably the most common trigger service that most people are going to rely on, you'll see that we have a huge test suite now. A lot of it focused on how we handle fault tolerance, what it's like when something fails. Another aspect here as well is how we basically decide if the workload has failed, if this gets into essentially a crash loop back off. There's definitely a lot more to add. I think in the docs right now, it is certainly much more towards the happy path, but understanding as an operator what it's like to run these things is going to be another big thing to make a pass on. But I guess a lot of these, my main call out here is this test suite has kind of the user stories for all of that. So it's the best place for documentation right now. So that's the one that I would recommend going and looking at.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion items? Okay. Just talking about other things that are coming up. So wasi-031 is coming in soon. I don't see Yordis on the call, but I'm gonna give him a shout out because his item's about to land. So over here, I created some tickets for essentially saying what we need to adopt within WASI for this next upcoming release, and I'm going to schedule the vote for this. So basically, in WIT, you'll be able to use map types. You can do this actually today behind a flag, and it's something that we could also add behind a flag in WasmCloud if we want to go ahead and add it. It's pretty darn straightforward. And yeah, the only place to actually add the flag is on the wash CLI itself, because this is like sugar really around the component model and not like an ABI level change. So this one we'll have a nice ergonomic lift for people who are defining WIT APIs, and you'll have a nice lift on the language bindings that you get, so like what people actually author. But in terms of like what we actually have to change on the host, I think it's nothing. So I like those. I like those kind of changes. What's not nothing is this one for what we had to change on the host. And we had a lot of changes that came in for a lot of this, but I think we've successfully gotten it landed across the ecosystem. There was one more big thing for this one, which is so this is the implements API, but there's a second aspect to it, which is external ID. So let me show you this one. There's some discussion to be had here on what should you put in an external ID when you're doing a workload deployment. So over here in WasmCloud, we've got a discussion item around this that I welcome folks to read and give feedback on. I already got good thoughts from Victor down here because it's a little open-ended on what you could be passing in on an external ID. And I think how we interpret that or what we would do about that is interesting. You know, if this is for configuration for the interface is one way to think about it, and not configuration for the plugin or the backing implementation. Or if it is something for the backend implementation and you use that to queue off all kinds of things. My current thinking right now is largely that we already have a great affordance for this with actual config values that you can pass in on host interfaces, so use that. And you could use this, but probably not as a developer. Like, I don't really anticipate developers writing their own external IDs. I expect automated processes potentially to add this type of information for the rollout and for the deployment. And kind of like, think of it more like a Kubernetes annotation style thing versus a Kubernetes label that maybe developers do on their own document. Yeah, oh, lost Colin. Okay, well, he said that's fast adoption on external ID, and yes, mainly because I want this to become a standard quickly. So I wanted to thread it all the way through. But also, this type of reference is really easy to add to the ABI spec, string value with a name. We basically already had it. So it's not quite as easy as maps where no canonical ABI changes were required, but it was almost that. It was the next smallest level up from that. So this one definitely would appreciate feedback on. And then I had more scope in my PR, but I whittled it down a little bit, and this kind of implements it through. But I think we definitely want to have a good concrete answer to what we expect people to use this for before merging. And that's all for me. Yeah, Aditya.
I had a request for a bit more attention towards onboarding new contributors
Ooh.
and making our repository a bit more friendly to them by adding a bit more good first issues. So obviously, I'm gonna take in the effort to maybe look for some pain points that could be classified as good first issues and add them to our roadmap. But if any of you guys come across any small issues that could be good for first-time contributors, that would be pretty lovely. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The hardest thing about those is making sure you have the right level of detail in the issue itself, right? We had some old issues that just weren't well qualified, I feel like. Specifically the like around the versioning on interfaces, for example. And so that one like isn't a good first issue, but there's another one that I just closed. Maybe. Oh boy. This one. One thing that I didn't take on that might be a good first issue if somebody wanted to take a look at, but I'm not even sure if it's a good idea. So that's the first part is we use Figment in the wash CLI, but we don't use Figment in the host, where I'm doing a bunch of configuration for environment variables. And that's one thing that came up building out trigger services. So that might be a good first issue. Might not be. Might need you to look at it, Aditya, and see if it's a good issue, period. So I think that's a great one. I think when I think about people coming in and having a hard time getting started, like the number one thing is just their language isn't. Oh, thanks, Frank. I was not sharing that. Let me go back. I'm just gonna drop the issue in chat actually, just so you can see here. So pull this back up. I called out that I opted not to include that in my list of follow-ups from review feedback. Mainly because, I think I want to see it be used a little bit more. I had conflicts with my PR with the concurrency one, so I didn't really want to land it right away, but I also think that could potentially be a good, self-contained change later. And then in terms of back to our project board, I think there's a plethora here of what we can add under this as sub-issues, right? So like we should have one for the work we're doing in Go and have that tagged out. We should have one for Python. I think like when I think about, when somebody's coming in, few people know Rust in their day jobs. For the most part, folks are writing in Python, Go, or Java. And so I'm not proposing that we take on Java right now, but we have a happy path for other languages. And so I think there's plenty there because essentially what I would want to see is if you go over, for example, to wasm-mcloud TypeScript, which is the main SDK that we've revved and kept up to date for our last quarter. What we did is we made sure that we mirrored over the examples that we have in Rust, plus some that we think are important to the TypeScript ecosystem. Like folks are definitely going to want to know how to use two different kinds of builders. They want to know how to use Hano. Like that's kind of what they expect in the TypeScript space. As you can imagine, there's a million and one of those kind of things probably for Python and for Go. So getting some of the high value targets there would be super nice. Obviously, step one though is we need to give them a repo to contribute to. But
I was just gonna talk about that. I saw Bharat's PR about awesome-wasmcloud, and I was just wondering, should we just create formalize a repo? It's like the contrib.
I think contrib is probably the best one, but I'm also game to rename it, if that's not a very findable thing.
We could just
contrib.
make it awesome-wasmcloud. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I'm good with that. We thought about that name. I have no idea why we didn't pick it though.
Which name is that?
This one. So there were a lot of in WasmCloud V1 days, there were a ton of different providers that people wanted. And there were different ways of kind of like what people wanted to play around with. And we needed a landing zone also because the MoonBit contributors wanted to get MoonBit on our radar. Folks don't know, MoonBit, it is a WebAssembly native language that compiles straight to components. It's really nice, and it has support in wit-bindgen. And it just works out of the box for us. We have to do nothing. But, folks like that want to be surfaced as high up as they can be on our, kind of like in our docs and everything. And so they wanted an awesome WasmCloud place to be like, we work over here too. And if you're over here, you might, care to do some MoonBit stuff. So I think probably what I would recommend we do is delete everything that's in contrib right now or move it to a V1 branch and then make main just be V2 and put Bharat's contribution over there as our first. This is basically the most awesome demo we've seen on WasmCloud V2. So it being the first makes a lot of sense.
And then we could probably even have Go, Python stuff added in there for the V2 stuff.
I think I want, okay, so when should we make our own Python repo versus not, right? When should we make a MoonBit versus not? I think the default should be add it to contrib first, so you're not black on us. So I think that is the right instinct. The only reason why I actually kind of really want a Python repo is that I think there's a handful of ergonomic things that we can do on top of componentize-py that makes adoption easier. Similar to why we have a Go SDK, which is kind of like, look, a lot of these types are generated. Here's some not generated types are very nice and easy to consume that you would want. Same thing goes for Python. So it's kind of the difference between first-party support and not. If we're willing to invest in first-party support, which I think we should be for Python, since that seems to be sometimes it's number one, sometimes it's number two. It depends, it seems like on the week, on whether or not people are most hustling for Go or most hustling for Python. But Python is definitely something that's coming up a lot with the AI world. So it definitely feels like one that if we've got the resources to do it, we should do a first party support. But until we do, contrib is the way.
Indeed. And do you think Python with wasi-nn could be a good shout?
Well, what if I told you I think we can do better than wasi-nn? Hot take. So wasi-nn has its own way of doing essentially model serving. And it's goofy. Essentially, it's like, here is a thing that is compiled specifically for this machine with exactly this model, with exactly these parameters for how to serve it. It's not portable. It doesn't just run anywhere. And so when it depends on what people are asking for when they ask for wasi-nn, sometimes they're asking actually just for the inference API, aka I just want a chat API, which is super easy to create, right? And so when we actually did our brainstorming, I don't think I went into this into detail but I think we should do it. So here's our Q3 finding.
Around WasmCloud inference or WasmCloud NM.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, because we can do something really nice here. So the reason why I want to shout this out is that wasi-nn hasn't yet been revved to WASI-P3. But what if you had, it doesn't have to be inference, it could be chat, right? But what you can do is a stream in and a stream out with P3. And so you can have a really nice ergonomic interface around that. And if we put this here, what we can do is wrap it. We can add another component around this that's kind of in the background, right? Probably a host component that implements WebGPU. And so similar to what Bharat already showed with Candle, we could do a Candle version of this, or we could do a Llama CPP version of this, or we could do it, etc. And so basically you could have a component depend on this component, right? And then what you can do is have a workload like this. I'm a workload. And it'll have, component A and component B. And both of them can import chat, basically, right? I'm calling it chat to simplify it. Sometimes when you say inferencing, people start thinking model serving and more complex things. And so I guess what I'm saying is the model serving challenge would be here. The actual, sort of the prompt API, aka, is here. And then this can, obviously just sit atop all of that. And that's how you get, modularized components being able to do LLM stuff, which I think is ultimately what everybody wants. And us by us coming up with what we want at the WasmCloud layer is a lot of benefits, right? We can move really fast. We can do a lot of interesting things here. And other folks, so I'm going to change this to Candle since this is what Brat's playing with. Does that. But essentially, oh yeah, and this is sitting on top of the host, right? So we already have this capability for everybody to use. It's already been P3 asyncified as part of 2.6. So inside 2.6, you get a P3 WebGPU API that's real nice. And then you can build on top of it with things that, it would import this to be able to do very efficient model serving. And then you could build a prompt API on top of that. And then you can have any number of workloads run on it multi-tenanted, which would be kind of cool. So
this is so cool. It's like a whole ecosystem being built on top of the whole chain.
and
It's
every
really
one of those components can be swapped around. Like that's the crazy cool part. And with all of this changing so fast, that's the only thing we can do reasonably right now, right? Instead of building these monoliths, which everybody else is building, we're building like, pluggable architectures, which is
exactly.
Yeah.
So cool.
So I actually asked Mindy to go ahead and make this, and he did. So and it works. He is on vacation today. Otherwise I would have put him on the spot. But he's basically going to be showing this off at the WebAssembly CG. And so in a week, probably we need a place for this, and probably should be awesome-wasmcloud instead of wasm-cloud contrib.
Haley, I thought it was totally my job to put people on the spot and call out technology that's being developed, to save time.
Yeah, well, let me do it one better. He actually talked about this and the differences between his approach and wasi-nn. I totally recommend everybody checking that out. So he was on WebAssembly Unleashed and went into, more detail about like why this approach versus this other approach. And that was a really good chat. I totally recommend folks watching that. And kind of like the superpower that we get with WebGPU, which is obviously portability, but also a lot of other things that he talks about. And he talked a little bit on some of the rough edges he ran into with porting Llama CPP, but he's been contributing his fixes back up all the way upstream. So it's pretty sweet. Keep going, Aditya. That was fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like we talk about stuff and it's already done. Yeah, what can I say?
Well, I mean, I totally welcome stuff coming in for wasi-nn. I guess it's just that proposal's like, started to there's not a lot of traction on that. I think folks have found that they want something that's like a smaller surface that's more purpose-built for that use case that's sandboxable, basically.
Exactly.
The other one's not easily sandboxable.
Yeah. So once this has been pushed out, maybe we could take a gander at it, for the Candle RS or even for something that's running in Python. And
yes,
yeah, that would be cool because you mentioned there's a lot of growing attraction for the whole Python crowd that's coming in. I think
I was able to get like FastMCP, for example, working with componentize-py. So like there's just and that's what I mean, like where people don't even know it's possible, and that's why it would be nice to have it either in awesome-wasmcloud or Python SDK. I kind of want to go that route because I want it to be really, really nice, but there's just so many different things that we can do now. I guess on an update on that, we got a WASI SDK RC available with cooperative threads in it. There's bugs, as there always are, but one of the bugs is already fixed, which was the biggest blocker for us being able to do cooperative threading with exception handling inside Python, which was the big driving force for a lot of this was basically being able to support Python fully, where they use green threads. And so cooperative threads obviously are a great way to emulate a native support for green threading. And so the progress on that's moving really fast. And so once a couple of those bug fixes land, most things I think in Python will just work, which will be pretty sweet. Like, so the first milestone there is getting a CPython with this built and making it really nice inside componentize-py and the Bytecode Alliance for other people to take that tooling and make their own WASI components from it. We want that flywheel to start first because basically once we have those components being produced, then people can push them up to PyWheels and other people can build with them because, you know, perennial problem of Python is it's not Python, some other language like Fortran or like some ancient stuff sometimes, especially when it's really mathy. So if you can take the native code, package that up in a portable WebAssembly component, shove that up into their registry, and then when you're building, you can just pull down an already pre-built component. You don't have to figure out how to build that native thing and just link to it. You know, Bob's your uncle. That's what my old CTO used to say. So yeah, I would say that's where we'd be at.
Yeah. So for the good first issues to kind of melt into the whole equation about getting more usage examples, would it make sense to maybe after we rename contrib to something like awesome-wasmcloud, we could probably take some Slack suggestions from the whole community members, throwing in suggestions based on the usage examples that they want to see, and probably have them up as good first issues in the awesome-wasmcloud place. So
I love that.
yeah, and it
And
would
then
be a really
link to awesome-wasmcloud straight from the README on wasmcloud too. Like
yeah,
it seems like most people look at that first.
yep, and just link them to the docs. That would be a really good way to increase adoption.
I love that idea. And so much so, what do we want, guys? Should it be like this?
Hmm.
Also, Victor, hello. I need your approval too. But between you, Aditya, Jeremy, we have a quorum. So let's do it.
I prefer it with the small c, just because.
Okay. I think that's actually why we didn't do it. Paging that back in from years ago, I think it was like, oh, that's weird and confusing, and we hate it. We'll call it contrib. There's
These
also
decisions are.
there's also that. Checking the chat real quick. Oh, you would make a new repo, Victor? Okay, I'll do that.
So if we create a new repo, that means that the current contrib one would just stay v1.
Yeah, we could archive it.
Yeah.
Should I just in the description put text and emojis here, or what would you put in the description, y'all? Also, computing plugins.
Workload examples.
Yeah, and maybe tools.
That's good. Yeah, with for use on WasmCloud.
Yeah, we should probably put WasmCloud in there
Yeah.
at least once. Maybe towards the beginning somewhere.
With the awesome, it gives us amazing SEO advantages as well. So that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. See, Frank. Good job. Good job, team. I feel like I created a template for us before, but it's okay. We won't have one. Go ahead and make that. Sure.
if you guys take a look at chat, you'd probably give it a few giggles.
Should I read that out for the stream, Yordis? All right, go team. So Aditya, if you want to create issues and stuff, go ham. And Brad, if you don't mind taking your PR and also actually putting it here, I really do want it to be our first awesome example because it is awesome.
Yeah, we should probably structure it a bit and we should be good to go.
Just a quick link for folks. Awesome. Are there other triage items we need to do? Like maybe I should go ahead and tag that out that you're doing that.
In the are we componentized? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is kind of like a subtask here, which is not something I know how to do. Cool. Yep. Well, I'll struggle through that later. I'll just say idea. I think if I do this, it'll link to it. Nah, no such luck. All right. All right. Fine. Um. Is that jive?
Yeah.
And that way we could check in on it next week and see where we are. I need to create a big issue for the distributed cache. I'm writing that down for myself to follow up on.
We could even have a brainstorm session because we ran into quite a few edge cases and we optimized a lot of the operator side as well as the whole cleanup of the whole distributed cache. So I got given my 2 opinions on that.
That would be really helpful. I also think we want to kind of think about it in concert with the idea of bringing other types of artifacts in. Part of the reason why we have the artifact abstraction, and I think I mentioned this to Mies when they started, but we wanted to also have the idea of being able to support that to have CWASM essentially as one part. Other things that could be on the table that we could discuss is like, should artifacts have models? You know, should we be thinking about how to distribute those and pre-cache and pre-compile those? You know, right now, not all models are OCI refed, right? They have the kind of their own path, but it would let people write their own operators to support those types in an artifact and still have basically our host guarantee that that artifact can be resolved and then have it passed to the hosts that know how to implement it. Obviously, the benefit there is we would be all building towards the same base for how to, you know, kind of serve these types of models, which every WasmCloud demo I've seen recently of people building on WasmCloud is in that vein of building your own agents, building your own kind of host for those types of things. So I think there's a lot there. Now, I don't want to like do too much overlap with things like kserve, for example. I think that's another awesome CNCF project that can stand on its own. But there might be overlap there to explore, at least from a brainstorming perspective. It's like, okay, if we're not going to do it the artifact way, what would that look like if you were using kserve, and just make sure that we have a comprehensive story for all of it. And to be honest, Yordis, I just now learned that you could put images there, and now I expect more frog memes from you. from here on out.
Why that?
It's funny how you know everybody's favorite emojis.
Yes.
Well, any other items we should go through before we adjourn?
I have one with you, but it's not about wasm-cloud. Just hunting you here.
I know, I'm sorry, I've been ignoring you. I need to get in there on wit-bindgen and do that code review. I honestly was kind of holding out hope that I could convince somebody else to go and take that over, but
Alex already said he's doesn't know about C++ stuff, so
I
yeah.
know. I saw. Sai's been on vacation. Yeah, I know. Like, oh, Alex doesn't know about C++ stuff. Like, that's false. But that's okay. I understand. The C++ bindgen, by the way, Yordis, you don't have to have that. None of us, it should be we, right? Because I'm your blocker there. We don't have to have that over the line to move maps to standardized.
I know, but I like to see things complete. So even C++ C# is like I want that everything to be green, like just personally, so my brain can move on.
Well, I don't know if you know our C++ support doesn't yet support P3 yet, so there's a lot there that bindgen does not do. Oh yeah, did you see that Victor got maps in to Jaco?
No.
Yeah.
Wait, that's cool. Where is that pull request? I need to find it and learn from it. Wait, what the heck is Jaco and why that is not in the bindgen repo?
Well,
that's
it's
a JavaScript
host.
one.
Yes, but also it's what we use as our
sure
second
gonna
reference.
create the map. You need to hold me to create this map. I swear I gotta keep like Jaco, hose, no hose. Like, oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, well, Victor's kind of right that we could have more in the bindgen repo for this one. But the other side of it is that rustaceans don't really want to see JavaScript. So that's the other side of that problem. Yeah. I think the reality is that I'm not sure this mapping of all the things that this rolls out to is Turing complete. I think that we see at least I see even circular references on how some of these things roll out depending on the language. Like they depend on it being in WASI SDK, but then they had their own implementation, and then they like jumped forward 2 steps, back sideways, and then it landed. So I don't know. I think you've done better than everybody else. How about this on seeing it all the way through to the end? I think, yeah, Victor just dropped the Jaco side of it, and then we also got implements through. And I did put links for all that, by the way.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on from the feature then. I guess. If you're telling me I did a good enough, okay, I'm moving on then.
You've done it. Yeah. So for what we're talking about here is look at all that green. I mean, that's crazy for something when we only usually hold the line for 2 languages. So you've already, met it. This is what Yordis is giving me a hard time for because that's on me.
No, it's not that one. It's a C++. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You need to
linked
data.
it.
You're I need to talk to your Liam. You need to talk to your boss here. It's like, what is this? It's outdated. Finally.
Well,
I do not tell Bailey what to do. Bailey and I align on business objectives, and then Bailey does what Bailey needs to do.
That is why I stick here with you. You're an amazing leader.
I'm not sure that Bailey would agree with you every day, but maybe someday she might agree. I'm very lucky. I've got a lot of trust in her instinct and her ability just to accomplish and solve a ton of technical, bandwidth all along the way. So I'm always very grateful about that. And sometimes I step on her toes a little bit when I try to help, but she's patient with me. And yeah, I try to go out and just raise the awareness and bring all the business boys to the yard so we can get more developers working on this. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay,
that's your fight. You make it important to her, and then she'll give you a
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Okay. I gotta move on then mentally from this thing. It's out of my hand then.
Yeah, just mentally say it's on me now. You've
Okay.
given me everything I need to do to standardize it. And I mean, if you'd like, have you ever attended a WASI meeting?
I think I think I do, but I always get like kind of like sleeping on it.
I
The was
mean,
time bi-weekly or no? Another one.
the WASI subgroup.
Oh no, I don't know what version is that one.
Well, it's the boring version of all these other things. It's the
To me,
non-implementation side of it.
I mean, it's
Um,
okay. I mean, in the was time bi-weekly, I swear to God, I feel like stupid. Like I fell asleep because like I don't know what is happening. Like
yeah, they're in the
like there's
guts.
too many smart people talking.
They're
Like
in the guts. Well, so this is the WASI subgroup is where we vote to advance it. And so it might be nice to have you there for when we standardize on this feature, just to give you the kudos you deserve. I gave you kudos last week, just knowing that eventually it might get back to you. But yeah, you might, to really close the gap that you've done it all, you might want to be there next week.
yeah, okay, yeah. Send the invite.
Okay.
Now I just need to pick the next thing to do. I'm messing around with Hyperlight and the Wasm stuff. For some
Cool
boxing.
stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can give you a wish list anytime. But it would be good to know what you're cooking on. I maybe can give you something that you'll actually be able to, use on your side. Because I know you needed maps. You wanted it for your use case.
Yeah, the last mile there is just lazy stuff that Alex said, no, I'm gonna do it. So I didn't do anything there.
Mm.
Yeah. After that, it's just the ergonomics between the protobuffer and the width. I still don't know who's supposed to point to who and why, and like if I can even able to do it. So,
Well,
yeah.
there's one new one that I've been working on designing that folks here might be interested in. So today, how do you do capability-driven security? Well, you do that based on the imports of the interfaces that you import. So um, if you are faithfully porting, let's say, the API to talk to GitHub, let's say, then one way you could do that and still have capability-driven security is by all of the read APIs being on their own interface and all of the write APIs being on another interface. And so you might be willing to grant somebody a read on that import, but you probably aren't willing to grant somebody a write. So you would deny them being able to have an import on the write APIs. Does that make sense so far? Okay,
Do you
so
remember? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I know this is interesting to you. That's why I'm throwing it out there. Like maybe
Okay.
Yordis does
Okay.
this. So wouldn't it be nice if instead you were able to come up with the unionized set of that, which I think is maybe what you've asked for before, but maybe we're actually ready to do it now. So instead of saying I've got to like split all of these APIs apart, and the reason why you might not want to do that is that you're basically taking the domain and then slicing and dicing it. And so, when you think about things with OpenAPI or with Protobuf, which is probably how you've run into this, you would generally say what you want this thing to do right there on top of that.
Yes.
And you would want it all in the same interface because it's part of the same domain. But it's on the import side, when you're actually bringing that in, that you actually want to be able to actually fine-grain control what actually gets imported. One way to do
Yes.
this, the proposal here would be that we introduce yet another annotated type, like what we just did with external ID, and have it be called something like claims. And that way you can say, is this a read one? Is this a write one? And then when you do the import into your, you're going to hate me because I'm going to say the word world, but when you do the import into your final component, right, your final thing, it gets only the set that you're saying I'm importing on. So you only could get the read APIs if that's all you wanted.
Okay, let me share something, and this is where like I hope that wit is ahead of the problem. Is
I
this
doubt it.
So first of all, let me go back, right? Notice that you said, oh, what if we split the write interfaces from the read interfaces, right? I forgot whoever was around back then, but like, oh, are you getting to segregation? Interesting. Should every single interface be only one function, Bailey? Because it's not about reads and writes. At that point, you could even segregate even further.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And now we go back to the ultimate design of an actual interface is a function, is not an object.
The
Because
function
at
is
some
not an
point,
object, but it's an
yes,
interface.
right, but the interface is a function. It's one operation. It's not n numbers of operations. Because at some point, with the exact same mindset that you go, either for security reason or scalability reason, you're gonna get to the point that says, "Oh, I wish this interface is few functions."
Well, the import of an interface will give you the set of functions.
No, that's my point. That if people design it like that, eventually you're gonna find out that you want only one function in that set of interfaces you're talking about. It's just the get or the put. It's no get and put or whatever combination.
Yes, but
You,
you want the ergonomic of being able to describe unionized sets.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But like my point is like any mature enough interface that trying to meet most of the requirements would end up being just one function inside. No a set. It's just one. So here's my fourth attempt of what you're saying. So this is how I'm trying to think of how to leverage Protobuffer. And the reason why I stick to Protobuffer, yes, the Proto up here for all the marshalling, right? But this is what I like from Protobuffer. You can always extend the specification. So what I do with this is just I give this spec, and there's a centralized service that takes all that type of information and send it to authorization engine where you could actually do the police checks. So if this somewhat what you're saying, and
This is
let me see if
basically
I
what
can.
I'm saying.
Yeah. So sorry. Okay. This is a hot mess. Don't look at it. This is just vibe coding. YOLO life for life. So
Oh,
like.
you're using SpiceDB, huh? Okay.
Yes. So like this is the ergonomics you're talking about what you want. And the reason I say, hey, I hope wheat is ahead of time is you need to define this sooner rather than later. And the reason is because the spec should be friendly for people like me to experiment around, test it, and see what sticks. Or even better, the width itself is really limited, right? For example, Protobuffer in a sense is just that, right? And service and message. So it's really limited. But they open it for you to do all this stuff. The faster wit does this type of thing, the better everybody around is going to win. Because this is where I'm actually concerned. When I say, hey, should I go from wit to proto or from proto to wit, is that if I go from proto to wit, which I want to do that, then I'm going to be limited with this type of thing. So I need to do shenanigans around like generating other things. Or for example, to make a point, right? Let's say there is an option here that is for like, okay, so this is a repeated and I want to do a unique list or whatever, I don't know, like Trogon type unique. For whatever stupid reason, right? It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I don't know if WIT has it, but it's something that I definitely recommend to have.
Yeah.
Because at this point you open the door. And yes, this is normally what you can do, and then you just map this to the WIT. Or vice versa. WIT could do something like this. And then that goes into the centralized service, which I have it here, which is normally like a catalog. I'm trying to find where the heck I put the like yam. Oh, in the README. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah. So eventually, like the protobuf is just a way to do it, but you could also have stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
This could also become a Kubernetes ERD if you want to. So especially, effectively, all this configuration goes into that centralized authorization engine that you most likely want from WasmCloud, by the way. And then in there you say, hey, here's operation I'm trying to do yada yada, and you do all the bindings and the stuff, which is what I also code here.
So I think to faithfully fully do what you're talking about, you need two things. You need what I'm talking about right now, which is just adding a concept of an annotated type that is user defined. So you can
Yep.
define this is read, write, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And right now the name we're using is claims, but could be anything. Yeah,
Yep.
like shed is paintable in this moment. And then the second part there is optional imports, and you've probably heard us talk about that. There are so many different affordances that we could do if we had that. But I'll be honest, I don't think you should mess with that one. That one, in terms of t-shirt sizes between claims and between optional imports, claims would be like a extra small t-shirt, and optional imports extra large. And I'm afraid that's an Alex one for
Yeah.
getting optional
I
imports
definitely
done.
need this one. So if you think was somewhat in the pipeline, I 100% need it. Because, for example, let's assume that wit doesn't have a specific type that is friendlier to make a point in the code gen, right? I can use this type of notation to say, hey, transform this type that I know that the width is going to do a specific way into something that is friendlier, right? Like instead of, I don't know, like the hash tree or whatever in Rust, I want to use the map, like to make a point. You could use this annotation to drive a little bit the compilation of them. So
Well,
I like I said, like this thing, whatever version of it is, I think is I think it's granted, especially that you could have done even experiments around this annotation, right, for all the stuff you introduce slowly to see how it sticks and see, oh, okay, I experiment, I see it's valuable. Now let's bring it up to actually the specification. Or no, it can just stay as an extension. Nobody needs to actually like build it from the width perspective.
we
Or, yeah.
We have another idea here, which is about the idea of just being able to have custom annotations, which we're anti right now, largely because we're afraid if you introduce that as a concept, everybody, have you ever heard of the phrase, to unhammer, everything looks like a nail? We're afraid that things that could have been solved in a better way ergonomically would be baked in forever with these custom types with no path. But I think we've gotten to the point now where we mostly have the affordances we needed, that's not any longer as big of a deal.
I let me push you back on something, and you please correct me, like disagree with me. One, I think the WebAssembly community is used to, well, here's the new way, YOLO it, right? Like look at preview 1, 2, 3. It's like the community is not scared of that. Okay, let's agree on that one, I think. And second, like I hear you, but what makes you believe that you are not missing out on those experimentations and observing actually production software with the real trade-off to then bring it up? And
Well,
and
I
and
would
and, and I'm
say
in that realm of like encourage experimentation with the strong community that is speaking from the get-go. Hey, better together and stuff like that, Bailey. Like if you take care of the culture aspect of it, then you get the benefits of the experimentation and autonomy, in my opinion.
the to be fair, I was the one that proposed custom annotations to begin with. I was the one that was told no. But
Yeah.
uh, the feedback I got was that I could build it in my own bindgen, basically behind a flag, and then I can do all that experimentation myself without baking it into the standard. Which I'm sympathetic to that because, with what we're doing in the web side of the world, like you define something, it lives forever and you can never, there's no takes backs there. Um,
More
so
reason for you to externalize the experiments until they're actually proven in production. So the only thing that you're taking is this specification is flexible enough to you for you to do the experiments, and you
yeah.
already you already have a precise way to see those experiments, right? Because if I fork and I'm making my own and stuff like that, like great. Now I need to figure out how you customize your thing in order for me to understand it, in order to then have a conversation to say, oh, now I see it, we could bring it in. So
But
I don't know.
you saw how hard it is when you change one thing, how many places you have to touch. Now imagine if you change the ABI. Because you didn't even change the ABI.
Yeah, well, some of these annotations, the good thing is some of these annotation, and most likely what most people would care is like code genning these things. Like it's barely the ABI itself, right? It's like, and for
Well,
example, like working in the maps type today, we put a lot of these customizations inside the flags, right? Like in the maps, you got to the point where like, oh, I may want 2 types of maps code gen. It's like that's what you would do in this type of notations. Like, okay, give me this flavor or that other flavor, and like, okay, ignore it, right? So
yeah,
the
that's
customization already exists.
well the sort of because you don't have it it only round trips for your stuff right now because it's in the custom metadata section, which is our favorite hack for a lot of things, but to avoid doing it in the ABI, the I would say that we can come up with a new annotation that we want people to use called claims, and we could design this in a way to have a generic attributes, which would be like the holding place for in number of other types of annotations we may want to feature add, if that makes sense. So external ID is an example, @sense, @unstable is another example. So we obviously have a pattern here, and if we create a table that's just of that, but I want it ultimately in the ABI in line as I'm parsing the component, because I eventually need this in the ABI, but I guess what I'm saying is we can start without it. Like we can do this trick in custom metadata basically to do all of this in a way to allow lots of experimentation without having to eat the whole world. So yeah, I think we can do it. I think it's time. And I get also why I got a lot of pushback for doing that too early. Because we didn't have the basics done yet.
Yep. And for the IAM stuff, just let me know. This is my bread and butter. And the second thing that I weirdly decided that is important in my life. I don't know why. So I have a lot of experience and scars. Also,
Yeah,
this service is on top of SpiceDB. That's authorization, the one who enforce it, which my opinion is the best one out there right now. But the whole management is on top of Jetstream, so it's familiar tooling for you.
yeah. Well, I also like I like the guy that created SpiceDB. So I've been wanting to play with it just for that. So all right. Thank you, Yordis. Thanks for hanging on. Anybody else who did? If you listen to this part, well, now you get to know what it's like in the guts. It's a fun place too. A lot of debates. But yeah, I think that would be a good candidate for you, Yordis. Then I have 1,000,001 wish list items, but it's more important to give people something they need.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Let's follow up on a Slack to figure out what you did before and like, yeah, see the path forward here then.
Yeah, you can it's still in component model, still just chilling, custom annotations. We let it go forward. But I'm gonna do it fresh again on the heels of people actually using this stuff and realizing they need it. So Aditya just asked you a question in chat before. I don't want to close it out. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now.
Have you worked with SSO? Like I say, like I'm